It's a monumental day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Aetherdrift is bringing some big changes to Magic. But the good news is, some of these changes are genuinely positive, and I'm happy to see them. On top of that, we have a weird secret layer leak that we need to talk about.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a fat and tasty installment of Mega Magic News. We have a ton to talk about in regards to Aetherdrift. We have a very strange secret layer leak that Wizards of the Coast is behind. And before we get into that, just want to let you know something I'm super excited about. I have put out a new movie review video on my movie review channel, and it is talking about the best movies I watched in 2024. So if you want to have a good time or hear about some movies you may not have seen but will enjoy, go ahead and check that out. I will leave a link to the movie review channel pinned at the top of the comment section, and it would make me extremely happy if you went over there, checked it out, and subscribed. Now that that's out of the way, let's dive in to the Aetherdrift news first, because there is a ton going on with Aetherdrift that affects Magic on multiple levels. One of the biggest things that's going on with Aetherdrift is the planar name change. So, Kaladesh has become Avishkar. This is something that's never happened in the entire history of Magic the Gathering. And there is an internal corporate reason that they did it, and there is an actual story reason that they did it. So I covered the corporate reason that they changed the name in my previous video. So if you'd like to hear that discussion, you can check that out. In terms of the underlying reason in the Magic story and lore as to why the world name has changed, they actually put in a bunch of effort to tell that story. So I went ahead and made a Magic lore video covering how Kaladesh became Avishkar. I just put it out pretty much right before this video. So if you want to check that out, I'll leave a link at the end of this video. My Magic the Gathering lore channel has 150 different lore videos for the game, so you can really sink your teeth in. But again, legitimately, Wizards actually put real effort into the world building behind the name change. They didn't just lazily go, oh, it's Avishkar, and there's no reason for it. So if you want to know the meat of the details, go and check it out. The lore video is about 9.5 minutes, so it won't take you that long to get up to speed. But this is one of the things that I'm pleased with, and it actually ties into the next point. So let's talk about that one as well. And actually, you know what? It kind of ties in with multiple points. I'm getting ahead of myself. So the next thing I want to talk about is that they only have 2 Planeswalker decks with this set, okay? So I'm going to put them up on the screen so you can take a look. We've got Living Energy and Eternal Might. So one is headed up by Saheeli, obviously somebody that we know from Kaladesh. The other has a mummified individual from Amonkhet. So there's multiple interesting things going on here. One is the fact that they're only putting out 2 Planeswalkers decks, which as far as I'm concerned is excellent news. This is one of the positive things that I consider about these changes, because up until now, we have been getting, with fair regularity, 4 commander decks for virtually every single release that Wizards of the Coast makes, and it is too many commander decks. The focus on commander has been too strong with Magic the Gathering, and they're finally starting to basically take their foot off the gas, to use an Aetherdrift kind of reference. They've taken their foot off the gas, so things aren't propelling as insanely down the realm of we are only commander. So going with 2 commander decks is a really strong change. Also, what's cool about this, and they talked about this in the live stream, is you might have noticed when you looked at the image, neither of them featured cars really or anything that feels like it hits the main Aetherdrift story. And that's because these commander decks are essentially there to tell you the story of what's happened on multiple different planes. So the Saheeli Rai deck is to cover basically what's happened on Kaladesh with the change into Avishkar. And the other one with the mummy on it is to talk about what's going on with Amonkhet. And Amonkhet, for me, is one of the coolest storylines in the last 10 years. It's incredibly epic what Nicol Bolas did to that plane, basically showing up, taking over it, subverting the gods, corrupting the undead to his own purposes. There's so much to it. But they've gone and added a ton more to the story in terms of actually letting us know what happened with Amonkhet next. And I will actually be covering that in a lore video over on my Fantasy Geographic channel as well. That's the next lore video, is talking about what's happened with Amonkhet. But as far as I'm concerned, Kaladesh changing into Avishkar is interesting, not just from a lore perspective, but also straight up from a historical perspective, in the fact that Magic the Gathering has never done that. So that's why I wanted to do that lore video first. But the Amonkhet situation is one where now the protective Hekma that existed around the one safe world on Amonkhet is gone. And there's this crazy situation going on with the undead on that world. Because if you didn't know, everybody who dies on Amonkhet automatically rises back up. Kind of like similar to the way on The Walking Dead, where they think, hey, these zombies, what's going on with them? Oh, it turns out that it's not something that's being done to these to turn them into zombies. It's that every human is going to rise from the grave, right? So that's the same kind of scenario here, where Amonkhet, basically anybody who dies there, rises up as an undead, and they get no rest whatsoever until their bones are dust. And the original Amonkhet setup had these honored deads in their white liniment wrappings, and they essentially were the servant class of Amonkhet. But now things have changed. We actually have the undead rising up. So you have the undead from the outside who kind of want to throw things down, but then the undead that actually already existed in the Amonkhet society have risen up essentially to become full standing members. No longer the servant class, they are now the defenders, they are now regular citizens, they're part of the community, and so that's why you actually see that one mummy as the face for the commander deck, where essentially what happens is Amonkhet is fielding its own team inside the Girapur Grand Prix. But they literally have brand new gods that have been birthed on Amonkhet. The Luxa is clean. Like, there is so much going on. Wizards of the Coast gave us a ton of information, and that actually ties into the next point. This is the second theme set we are ever getting, and I fully will go on the record saying that I do not like these weird themes that go outside what feels like traditional Magic the Gathering with swords and sorcery style stuff. There's a little leeway to move outside of that to a degree, but ultimately the theme sets, for example, Thunder Junction was the first theme set that they made, and it was all just slap cowboy hats on everybody, give them blasters, give them dusters, have them live in rickety wooden buildings, and there is literally no explanation for why all these people left a different world. Like, why did these people leave their different homes, come through the Omen Pass, and not bring any of their culture with them? So, for example, if you lived on Ravnica or Capenna, and you were used to having like modern buildings that are built out of concrete or stone or something suitable, why would you go to Thunder Junction and build your buildings out of wood? It's completely illogical. So ultimately, Thunder Junction suffered from a lot of that. And when people asked, specifically Mark Rosewater, hey, why are all these people on Amonkhet? Rosewater went, it's a theme set. We're going to do one every year, and everybody can just show up there, and that's how it's going to be. But it was incredibly unsatisfying. Now, with this set, they've actually already released 2 installments of the Planeswalker's Guide, which is, it gives you a whole bunch of background information, artwork, flavor. It is a little bit weird that it's called the Planeswalker's Guide to Aetherdrift, making it sound like Aetherdrift is a place you can go. But Aetherdrift is actually just the name of this set that represents racing across 3 different planes. The 2 that we already mentioned for the Commander decks and Muragonda. So it is a little bit weird to call it the Planeswalker's Guide to Aetherdrift, but that's a very tiny quibble. I am over the moon with the amount of lore and world building that they have included in it. I've read it over, but I actually have to go over it again so that I can make sure that I've really solidified my understanding of it, because they put in genuine effort. So this is a huge change for theme sets. The previous one, Thunder Junction, had literally no Planeswalker's Guide and nothing to explain most of the flavor. There was a little bit of retconning they did with a couple of different characters ultimately, but it was all this stapled together stuff, and it really didn't have a proper flow through. And while I'm not a big fan of the vroom vroom beep beep concept of Aetherdrift, I am a big fan of set cohesiveness, making like there is a genuine reason that this race is taking place. It literally isn't just about the race. It is about interplanar wars, a fight that's brewing between Avishkar and Ravnica, and literally what used to be Kaladesh and now is Avishkar is essentially using this race as a political tool to try and become the most important plane in the multiverse. And it's already starting to work because other parts of the multiverse are adopting what they are doing in terms of language and things like that. They are successfully exporting their culture via things like the Grand Prix. So there's genuinely an underlying reason for the race to exist. There's a reason for the plane to change its name. There's a reason for what's going on in Amonkhet. There's a reason for all the different groups that are participating in the actual Grand Prix. So ultimately, it is a lot tighter when it comes to putting the story together. And for me, the biggest positives out of all the stuff, we're not done, there's still more things to talk about, but the biggest positives out of all of this news, I guess, you know what, let me finish the news. I'm so excited that they gave us like big chunks of genuine lore and world building. The fact that we're not moving further down the lane, I genuinely thought that basically the plan over at Wizards of the Coast was, look, we're going Universe Beyond. That's the plan. We've got 50% Universe Beyond now, and a bunch of the other sets that we have are essentially aping Universe Beyond. That's what I consider Aetherdrift to be, an imitation brand Universe Beyond set. Because people driving around in race cars and motorbikes does not feel like Magic the Gathering. It didn't feel like it to me back when Kaladesh came out and they only had a few cars and helicopters, and it sure doesn't feel like it now with that whole setup. But ultimately, the fact that they're focused on telling the story and building the world instead of just going, well, we're just doing Universes Beyond. We don't have to worry about in-universe Magic stories. That's very heartening to me. They are worrying about in-universe stuff, and it says to me that maybe they're not just going to throw everything off when it comes to Universes Beyond. They're going to genuinely care about Magic world building. And another thing I want to point out to give you guys some hope, and this is what I'm holding on hope for too, this year is going to be a weird year for Magic the Gathering, okay? We're going to be getting this race car set. We're going to be getting, like 2025 is going to have the race car set. It's going to have the space opera set. It's going to have 3 different Universe Beyond full-on sets, including things like Spider-Man. There's going to be the SpongeBob Secret Lair. We are veering off into full-on crazy town when it comes to a lot of what's going on with Magic. But they specifically said that with their research, Wizards of the Coast realized that 2024 didn't do that well for them. The sets kind of struggled to really get anywhere. Thunder Junction, Markov Manor being the biggest examples of this, where it's basically just dudes putting on hats. There's no meat, there's no real thought to making it all cohesive and make it work. And they rely a lot on low-hanging trope fruit and goofy cultural nonsense in terms of, hey, you recognize this from this show? Hey, you recognize that? And there will always be some element of that in Magic, but they've said that they've gotten the feedback. They are making changes with the design of Magic sets, but we've got to wait because it takes a year and a half, sometimes 2 years for it to work its way through the system. So we're going to be seeing changes moving away from this crazy, tropey weirdness and a little more into the Magic that we're used to if what we're being told is true. Who knows? They might change their mind a year down the road, but it looks like we're going to have to go through this year with more goofiness akin to 2024, but then once we get to 2026, then we should be pulling that back and returning to something that's a little more akin to what we're used to. Now, let's talk about the next thing that's going on with Aetherdrift, which is the changes to box topper cards. So Aetherdrift is going to include box topper packs. And these box topper packs are going to be a little bit different in that they include 2 cards instead of 1 card. Because most of the time, box toppers are included with just 1 card. And box toppers, to me, are a sign that Wizards of the Coast doesn't have as much faith in a set as they could, ultimately, right? They want to go, hey, we put this little bonus in. Box toppers are fun. So how it's going to work with these box toppers is you're going to get 2 cards. One card's going to be a basic land from Aetherdrift or with special variant art. And the other card will be more what we're used to with the box toppers, which is it could essentially be any rare, mythic, showcase card. There's also something called Graffiti Giants that it could be. So the Graffiti Giants are a set of, if the information I've seen is correct, 8 borderless mythic versions. I assume that they're going to have regular versions of these giants as well as normal mythics, but they're going to have graffiti variations as the special showcase kind of thing. Now, what's of particular note about these is not only are they foil treatment, which is obvious, normally that's what they do. They're calling these ones first place foils, by the way, but they're going to be golden bordered. So it's essentially supposed to be a first place winning trophy, gold bordered basic lands, and then gold bordered versions of the rares and mythics from the set. Now, I haven't seen them yet, so there's a part of me that feels like this is going to be strange. But if they look nice enough, Wizards might have created a new echelon of collectability when you want to like make your deck that much more impressive by bringing in those gold bordered rares. And Aetherdrift also is only going to have 1 serialized card in it. So the Aether Spark will be in there, but there's only going to be 500 copies of the serialized Aether Spark. You can get normal ones, but the serialized one, there'll be 500 of it, but it's going to be the only serialized card in the set. So that is definitely different than what we're accustomed to. But overall, this news to me is heartening. The focus on improving the Magic story, making sure that if you make changes, you spend the time to actually justify it by world building. There has been a ton of world building with Aetherdrift, which genuinely surprises me. If you had asked me to bet money on whether Aetherdrift would expand the lore of Magic the Gathering in a satisfying way, I would have said no, probably not, honestly, because Aetherdrift is going to be as empty as Thunder Junction was. They're just going to be like, broom, broom, beep, beep. So if you want to know what happened in the story, huff gas, buddy. The fumes will tell you. That's literally what I was expecting. So this, to me, is a massive step in the right direction. And like I said, if this year feels weird to you, you got to Wilson Phillips it, hold on for one more day, that day actually being a full year. And then in 2026, we might be looking at something better. Who knows? Tarkir is in the middle of 2025, and it has the potential to be a full-on genuine Magic set. But Foundations looks like the only real taste of old schoolness that we're getting for a while. Now, let's talk about the weird secret layer leak that Wizards of the Coast did. So, up on the screen, you're going to see the image of 4 arena sleeves, okay? Now, these are from a secret layer called Adventures of the Little Witch. But here's the thing. The secret layer doesn't exist yet. Okay, so I mean, in one way, it must exist because Wizards of the Coast has the artwork for it. But I mean, they've never officially announced it. We never talked about it. They just unceremoniously dumped these sleeves on Arena. And then 2 days later, there was a notice on the Chaos Vault secret layer page saying, hey, a little witch has been spotted on the loose. So essentially, they're trying different experiments to build up the hype for these secret layers. And the strangest part is, on top of showing this art, they actually had the card names available. So if you hovered over the little question mark down in the corner, it would genuinely show you the names of the cards. So I'm going to toss them up on the screen so you can see the cards, and then you can try and guess what artwork they actually go with. Because when it comes to some of these, they could be anything. So we have Secret Rendezvous, which is a very disappointing white card. 2 white and 1 for a sorcery. You and target opponent each draw 3 cards. This might be good for commander deal making, but for me, I hate giving my opponents resources. I hate giving them equal resources. If I draw 3 and you draw 1, okay. Us both drawing 3? Me spending 3 mana to do that? Are you kidding me? This card's worth like a quarter, bro. This is a nothing burger card, right? Then you've got Serenity. Serenity is actually an interesting one, and I'm using the weird mystery booster printing they did. This secret layer might actually be a little more desirable if they hadn't already reprinted Serenity in the mystery boosters. But anyways, Serenity is a white and 1 for an enchantment that says at the beginning of your upkeep, destroy all artifacts and enchantments they can't be regenerated. Gotta love that old school wording, right? So this is a weird global board wipe that hits all artifacts and enchantments, including itself. So you put it out as essentially a 1-turn clock, bam, and then it goes off. So this is an interesting include. If they hadn't reprinted it, it would make this secret lair more juicy. Then we've got Esika's Chariot, which is a green card I loved back in the standard days that I was using it. 1 green and 3 for a 4/4 legendary vehicle. When it enters the battlefield, create 2/2/2 green cat creature tokens. Whenever the chariot attacks, create a token that's a copy of target token you control. And it's got crew 4, so you can crew it with the cats that make it, right? I genuinely enjoyed this card quite a bit. This one is also pretty valueless. Serenity is worth maybe $1 or $2. Esika's Chariot's worth maybe $1 or $2. So where's the value in this secret lair? Well, that would be in Realms Uncharted, which for some reason they accidentally put as Uncharted Realms. So I guess theoretically they could spoil a new card called Uncharted Realms, but there's nothing else that fits the bill. And this is a big money card. Realms Uncharted is worth like 20 bones or so. I'm talking Canadian prices, by the way, right? So basically, this is the big deal for the secret lair. It is from the old Eldrazi block, the original Zendikar block, right? So 1 green and 2 instant. Search your library for 4 land cards with different names. Reveal them. Opponent chooses 2 of those cards. Put the chosen cards into your graveyard, the rest into your hand, then shuffle your library. So this would be the hotness for it. And because this one's only like 20 bucks Canadian, when you put the value of all these cards together, you're looking at maybe, if you're lucky, 15 to 20 American dollars. So most likely what's going to happen is this secret lair is going to be popped up over on the Chaos Vault website, and they're going to have it again with the $25 price tag. So this essentially confirms the theory that I had before, that the Chaos Vault exists as a way to clear out and dump off secret lairs. Not ones that they've already revealed to us, because they have a different way of doing that. They already told us, hey, we're basically going to have a website where you can go and look at all these older secret lairs. We'll keep them up for sale and you can snag them here or there. But this is something different where it's secret lairs we've literally never seen before. So ultimately, this is going to be the dumping grounds for the secret lairs. Now, when you look at the actual artwork of the sleeves and you look at the cards, it does genuinely feel kind of hard to figure out which one's which. Like, look at Realms Uncharted. Realms Uncharted could be any of these pieces of artwork, right? You've got the little witch over by the waterside. Are these Uncharted Realms? The one beside it does have a paddle wheel that's spinning, so there's already people living there. But you've got the flying fish and stuff coming by. So again, this literally could be someplace that isn't on a chart. This could just be, hey, some random dude, hermit, lives out here and he built this paddle wheel where he suns with his little flying fish and stuff. So you look at that, it could be Realms Uncharted. The next one beside it where the girl's laying in the field there, that could be Realms Uncharted. She's found some place in a field no one's ever been to and is just laying there. And then on the far left, that could also be Realms Uncharted, because you just, where are you? You're off in some twilight. There's some weird wolf dog hanging out there looking at you. The fact that we can't see the entirety of the artwork does make it a little more questionable. I feel like Esika's Chariot has fewer options. It can't be the waterside one. It probably isn't the paddle wheel one, but it could be the other two, because you see the witch laying there, and right at the edge of the card, you can see what looks kind of like a tiny little cat or fox, right? And then beside that, you have the one with the white dog that could theoretically be considered a weird cat from another world. So it could work for Esika's Chariot. When you look at Serenity, Serenity could be any of these. Same thing, by the waterside, by the water wheel, laying down in the field, or hanging out with a dog. When it comes to the secret rendezvous, there's 3 options. The one by the waterside, she's by herself. There's no other living beings. Who are you rendezvousing with? But you could be rendezvousing by the paddle wheel. That rendezvous could be hanging out with that little cat in the laying down in the grass. Or it could be that crazy dog over at the edge. So ultimately, when you look at these, it's really hard to pin down what's what, but I love the whimsical nature of the artwork. It's got a great vibe, and apparently this is most likely based on a children's book called The Adventures of the Little Witch, which is about a good witch who is raised by bad witches, and she's taught to do evil. So, I mean, there is a fun little bit of contention in there with the whole your innate nature is good and you're caused to do evil. None of that obviously ties into the artwork from these, right? So, to me, this is a funky little way of leaking the secret lair. We'll see how it turns out. We'll see how this overall Chaos Vault experiment goes. But I imagine it's going to get a little bit of traction at first and then kind of get forgotten about. Now that wraps up all of the news that I have to talk about today. So a reminder, I released a brand new movie review video over on my movie review channel. Go check that out. And also, go check out the lore talking about how Kaladesh became Avishkar over on Fantasy Geographic. Thanks for coming by. Big shout out to my patrons and my members for supporting my channel. You guys rule, and I will see you all in the next video.